South Korean MPs have begun impeachment proceedings against President Yoon Suk-yeol after thwarting his shock move to impose martial law. The Korean Confederation of Trade Unions, one of the country's major workers' unions, gathered in Seoul to call on President Yoon to resign. Members of South Korea's workers' union have announced an indefinite general strike, denouncing Yoon's actions as unconstitutional and undemocratic. Meanwhile, the South Korean parliament has imposed a ban on all defense officials and police from entering the National Assembly building.
늦은 밤 우리 국민들은 정말 깜짝 놀랐습니다. 전쟁이라도 난 줄 알았습니다. 그런데 그것이 아니라 윤석열 정권이 대통령이 자신의 정치적 기반이 약해진 것을 계기로 비상계엄을 선포했고 민의의 전당이라 할 수 있는 국회에 군부대를 투입했습니다. 이것은 민주사회에서 도저히 용납될 수 없는 일이라 생각합니다. 그래서 밤사이 많은 국민들이 국회에서 비상계엄을 해제시키기 위해서 함께 싸웠고 오늘 아침부터는 각계각층의 인사들이 함께 모여서 번국민적 항쟁을 만들어보자라는 결의를 가지고 이 자리에 섰습니다. 이 시간부터 노동자들은 파업에 돌입할 것입니다.
Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has told reporters that Tokyo would keep its eye on events in Seoul. The Prime Minister said that Japan is doing everything it can to ensure the safety of Japanese nationals in the country. PM Ishiba reiterated that he is watching the developments closely.
他国の内政についてあれこれ申し上げる立場にはございません。しかしながら昨晩の戒厳令発出以来、私どもとして特段のかつ重大な関心を持って注視をいたしておるところであります。注視をいたしておるところであります。在留邦人の安全につきましては領事メールを在留邦人の安全につきましては領事メールを直ちに発出する等々においてできる限りの対応を取っております。
France's minority government looks as if it is in its final hours as opposition lawmakers from the left and the far right have vowed to topple Prime Minister Michel Barnier's cabinet. A no-confidence vote is scheduled for later today at Parliament in the wake of a divisive budget debate with a great chance of being successful. Bangladesh summoned India's envoy to Dhaka on Tuesday, hours after closing its visa and consular office in Tripura, following a security incident on the 3rd of December. Tensions between both countries are high amid violence against Hindu minorities in Bangladesh. Now, Dhaka summoned the Indian High Commissioner to express quote-unquote concerns about the breach of security in Agartala. Around 50 people had participated in a massive protest against the arrest of Hindu monk Chinmoy Krishna Das there. Verma, in turn, upheld the importance of a broader, multi-dimensional relationship between the two nations, stressing such ties can't be reduced to a single issue. Israel has threatened to return to war in Lebanon if its truce with Hezbollah collapses. Israel said this time its attacks would go deeper and target the Lebanese state itself after the deadliest day since the ceasefire was agreed last week. In its strongest threat since the truce was agreed to end 14 months of war with Hezbollah, Israel said it would hold Lebanon responsible for failing to disarm militants who violate the ceasefire. Russian drones have struck critical infrastructure in Ukraine's western Ternopil and Rivne regions overnight. The Ukrainian Air Force has said the attack left part of the city of Ternopil without electricity a week after Moscow's strikes cut much power too of the city and its surrounding region. Ukraine on Tuesday blasted an agreement struck 30 years ago, under which it gave up nuclear weapons in exchange for security assurances that never materialized. Ukraine is making a concerted push for an invitation to join the NATO alliance. Kiev is desperately calling for robust security guarantees to protect it from renewed Russian aggression as Trump's return to the White House raises fears of a rapidly struck settlement to the war that would leave it exposed. Syrian and Russian warplanes have launched concentrated air and missile strikes on Idlib. The Syrian Defense Ministry has confirmed killing and wounding dozens of terrorists and destroying their vehicles and weapons. United Nations Security Council members continue to discuss the ongoing crises in Syria. The 13-year civil war in Syria has roared back into prominence with the rebels' surprise capture of Aleppo. Insurgents led by the jihadi group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham launched the two-pronged attack on Aleppo last week. The Syrian military and its foreign allies have rushed reinforcements and launched airstrikes as they attempted to stall their momentum. Democrat Adam Gray has won the U.S. House election in California's 13th congressional district, unseating Republican John Duarte. Gray's win in the Farm Belt seat that cuts through 5 counties means Republicans have won 220 House seats this election cycle, with Democrats holding just 215 seats. Gray won by a margin of less than 200 votes, with election officials reporting all ballots had been counted. President-elect Donald Trump's pick to lead the Drug Enforcement Administration abruptly withdrew his name from consideration days after being chosen. Chad Chronister said in a post on X that he made the decision as the gravity of this very important responsibility set in. He did not cite a reason for his withdrawal other than concluding he wanted to continue in his current role as a sheriff in Florida. On its 61st flight, India's workhorse rocket has been tasked by the European Space Agency to launch 2 satellites that will mimic the total solar eclipse through precision formation flying. The satellites, named PROBA-3, will lift off from Andhra Pradesh's Sriharikota today at 4:08 p.m. Indian Standard Time. In his first statement to Parliament since India and China reached an agreement in October, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar said the conclusion of disengagement has set Delhi-Beijing ties in the direction of some improvement. Jaishankar said in a detailed statement in the Lok Sabha, recent developments that reflect our continuous diplomatic engagement have set our ties in the direction of some improvement. Listen in to what he said.
The House is aware that our ties have been abnormal since 2020, when peace and tranquility in the border areas were disturbed as a result of Chinese actions. India and China have held talks for multiple decades to resolve the boundary issue. While there is a line of actual control, LAC, it does not have a common understanding in some areas. We remain committed to engaging with China through bilateral discussions to arrive at a fair, reasonable, and mutually acceptable framework for a boundary settlement.
Philippine officials say that Chinese Coast Guard vessels fired water cannons, blocked and sideswiped a patrol vehicle in a disputed shoal in the South China Sea. Philippine Coast Guard said that several Chinese Coast Guard and Navy ships approached Philippine vessel and staged quote-unquote aggressive actions after dawn. There was no immediate comment from the Chinese officials. Street protests in Tbilisi continued for a 5th night as demonstrators and riot police exchanged fireworks and tear gas. Water cannons were used to disperse the protesters. In footage, cops were seen detaining a protester. Thousands of demonstrators converged on Parliament again overnight, wearing gas masks and using homemade shields to deflect police tear gas canisters. Protesters continue to vent outrage over the ruling party's decision to suspend negotiations on joining the European Union. The long-running gang and racketeering trial that led Atlanta rapper Young Thug to plead guilty in October ended on Tuesday. The last 2 defendants were found not guilty of racketeering. murder, and gang-related charges. Demont Kendrick, who raps as Yuck Gotti, was acquitted of all charges. Meanwhile, Shannon Stillwell was found guilty only of gun possession. The verdicts come nearly 2 years after the jury selection began and 1 year after opening statements in a trial plagued with problems. The Emir of Qatar kicked off a state visit to Britain on Tuesday. He enjoyed a private lunch at the Buckingham Palace. King Charles and Qatar's Emir also viewed the royal collection items related to Qatar. The Prince and Princess of Wales, William and Kate, granted Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani and his wife earlier in the day. The couples then travelled to Horse Guards Parade in central London, where King Charles III formally welcomed the Emir and Sheikh Jawahar to Britain. Juan Carlos Izaza, Managing Director of the Latin American Information Alliance, called for greater collaboration among media organizations in the Global South. He emphasized the potential to address shared challenges and enhance cultural exchange, particularly in today's divided world.
I know about other regions in the world and about similar organizations in Africa, in Asia Pacific, in the Pacific Islands. And I know that they also cooperate, but I think that there is a work to do to integrate the regions, you know. I think that by now the regions collaborate within the same region. The Africans collaborate with the Africans. The Asia Pacific countries collaborate within their own region, but I think that there is still a big effort to integrate the whole southern countries.
French President Emmanuel Macron is on a 3-day state visit to Saudi Arabia, where he's expected to attend different events. Macron attended the One Water Summit in Riyadh alongside Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. During opening remarks at the summit, the Crown Prince called for joint plans to secure sustainable water resources. Listen in.
تستعد المملكة لاستضافة المنتدى العالمي للمياه في الدورة الحادي عشر عام 2027 بالتعاون مع المجلس العالمي للمياه، كما أعلنت المملكة تأسيس منظمة عالمية للمياه مقرها الرياض تهدف إلى تطوير وتكامل جهود الدول والمنظمات لمعالجة تحديات المياه بشكل شمولي. وستعمل هذه المنظمة على معالجة القضايا المتعلقة بالمياه على مستوى العالم من خلال توحيد الجهود الدولية وإيجاد الحلول الشاملة للتحديات المائية، بما في ذلك تبادل الخبرات والتقنيات المبتكرة وتعزيز البحث والتطوير في هذا المجال. في هذا الصدد فإن المملكة تدعو الدول الأعضاء في الأمم المتحدة والمنظمات الدولية والقطاع الخاص إلى الانضمام إلى هذه المنظمة.
Severe floods caused by monsoon rains have killed more than 30 people and displaced tens of thousands in Malaysia and southern Thailand. Now both the countries are preparing shelters and evacuation plans. Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim said 5 days of heavier than expected rain that battered the country's east coast last week was equal to the rainfall over the past 6 months.
Kereta lah, ingatkan air tak naik. Tiba-tiba dalam pukul 5 kena tu air terus naik, tak berhenti. Jadi sempat ambil barang yang ada kat bawah je lah. Air terus naik dengan tinggi.
Cleanup work continues in parts of the Great Lakes region, shocked by late-night snowstorms that dropped several feet of snow over the weekend. Forecasters are warning that another storm system could add a few more inches and maybe even more later this week. In the village of North Perry, residents were seen removing feet of snow from their driveways and rooftops of their homes. Barclays has agreed to pay a $19.5 million payment to settle a lawsuit in Manhattan by shareholders who accused the British bank of securities fraud. Now, this comes after it sold $17.7 billion in more debt than regulators allowed. a preliminary settlement of the proposed class action was filed in Manhattan Federal Court and requires approval by the U.S. District Judge Catherine Polk Falia. Barclays continued to deny wrongdoing in connection with the settlement. Jaguar has launched its new Type 00 EV concept at the Miami Art Week. The EV concept car, unveiled in blue and pink, looks nothing like Jaguar's previous more traditional creations, representing a greater change in both design and strategy from the iconic luxury car maker. Now, this is the first launch since the iconic British luxury car maker rebranded its logo and image following the Copy Nothing campaign. The Kunjar Up Pass in northwest China's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region has officially transitioned from seasonal access service to full-year service starting from Sunday. Now, the port is located in the Taxkoran Tajik Autonomous Country of Kashgar, which is in the core area of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. India's Services Purchasing Managers Index marginally dipped to 58.4 in November, while employment in the segment recorded robust growth. The seasonally adjusted HSBC India Services Business Activity Index was down marginally to 58.4 from 58.5 in October as sales increased at a softer pace. Now, last month, the country's services PMI recovered from its 10-month low. Thailand's Prime Minister Shinawatra welcomed Jensen Huang, Chief Executive and founder of NVIDIA in Bangkok. Shinawatra and Huang discussed avenues of collaboration. According to government spokesperson, Thai PM's meeting was an important chance to extend collaboration on artificial intelligence. Thai Prime Minister welcomed the signing of a memo of understanding between NVIDIA and the Ministry of Digital Economy and Society. Four of China's top industry associations said on Tuesday that Chinese companies should be wary of buying US chips as they are, quote-unquote, no longer safe and buy locally instead. The comments were a rare coordinated response to Washington's curbs on Chinese chip makers. The two nations have targeted each other's economies in the last few days, escalating tensions even before US President-elect Donald Trump returns to the White House in January. Trump has promised to impose heavy tariffs on imported Chinese goods, reviving a trade war from his first four-year term as president. Intel has started evaluating a handful of outsiders, including former board member Lip-Bu Tan for the role of Chief Executive Officer. This comes after the American chipmaker icon ousted company veteran Pat Gelsinger. Tan, a well-respected semiconductor industry veteran who has long been seen as a contender for the CEO at Intel, has reportedly been approached by Intel's board for the position. Google Cloud has said that it has partnered with Air France-KLM to deploy generative artificial intelligence technology on the airline group's data. Peter Jackson and the original cast of The Lord of the Rings walked the red carpet for the world premiere of The Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim in London. Cate Blanchett, Ian McKellen and Andy Serkin were amongst the original trilogy cast members to pose on the carpet, alongside the new ensemble including Brian Cox, Gaia Weiss and Lawrence Ubong. The War of Rohirrim premieres in theatres on December 13th. Peter Jackson reunites with Cate Blanchett and Ian McKellen at the world premiere. Scottish art artist Ghislaine Corr won the UK's prestigious Turner Prize for her solo exhibition, Alter Alter. The exhibition includes an installation of a vintage Ford Escort car draped in a crochet daily. Kaur was announced the winner and was awarded £25,000 by actor James Norton during a ceremony at the Tate Britain Gallery in central London. Thousands of giant panda sculptures greeted residents and tourists in Hong Kong. Enthusiasm for the bears has grown on the city after 2 cubs were born in a local theme park. The 2,500 exhibits were showcased in a launch ceremony of Panda Go Fest Hong Kong. It is the city's largest panda themes exhibition at the airport. They will be publicly displayed at the Avenue of the Stars in Tsim Sha Tsui, a popular shopping district, this weekend before setting their footprint at 3 other locations this month.